I thought of what I wanted to talk about with you guys this week on the first week of the season, opening week, opening day. What do I want to tell you guys? Because look, I could talk to you guys for hours and hours and hours about the things I was excited for. But what I'm going to do this week is give you guys 3 storylines that I think that you should follow all season long. And the interesting thing about these 3 topics is all 3 play into each other one way or another. So the first storyline in 2026 that I want you to follow all year long, and I know this is going to rub some people the wrong way, but I do think it's very important. The success or failure of the 2026 Los Angeles Dodgers. Yes, you heard me right. The Dodgers are a big-time storyline for me in 2026. The Dodgers are coming off winning the World Series. We just mentioned it against the Toronto Blue Jays in maybe one of the best World Series ever. Went to 7 games, went to extra innings, the star power, the drama, and ultimately the Dodgers beating the Blue Jays in Toronto in Game 7. I was there for every game, and guys, it was truly insane, but great baseball theater. And they were the first team to win back-to-back World Series in 25 years. And now, going into this year, they could be the first team to win 3 straight World Series since that same team, the New York Yankees from 1998 to 2000, that won 3 World Series championships in a row before being beaten by the Arizona Diamondbacks in 2001. But they went to 4 straight. That was honestly amazing. I don't know if we're going to see that again. But the Dodgers go into this season. Well, let's back up a little bit. They went into the offseason after winning the World Series. And you looked at that team and said, man, this team was so talented. You know all the money they spent on the roster. They have the best player in the world in Shohei Ohtani. You have Hall of Famers all around the diamond, and Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts and Will Smith behind the plate. You bring in Blake Snell. You have Tyler Glasnow on the mound. You go out and get a young Japanese phenom in Roki Sasaki. And you could still look at the roster and say, man, this team still has some holes. So what do? They go out and they get Edwin Diaz, closer, longtime closer, formerly of the New York Mets, and they bring him in. You can make the case he's the best closer in all of Major League Baseball. Throughout the Dodgers' success over the last, let's call it 4 to 7 years, the one area where you could say they've had a hole has been in their bullpen, right? Like ever since Kenley Jansen left the Dodgers, they've been looking for that guy that was automatic in the 9th inning. Like I think Blake Trinan, when he's healthy, especially 3-4 years ago, like he was still a great option for them, but wasn't necessarily that guy that you said, all right, this is the guy we want to get 40 saves down the stretch. And now they have a guy in the back end in Edwin Diaz that can definitely be that guy where you look up and you're like, okay, it's 9th inning, Dodgers are up. Uh-oh, here comes Edwin Diaz. That is going to be a sight to behold. And I think it's going to make a team that was already really, really good even better. And they weren't done there, right? They went out and you said, okay, this roster has talent all around the diamond, but where are their holes amongst the position players? And you say, maybe the corner outfield. I know they have Teoscar out there and Andy Pages and, Kike moves around the diamond for them, but they don't have like that guy in left field or in right field. And what do? They were just, this is what the Dodgers do. They just waited and then they waited and they were waiting in the grass like a lion about to pounce on a gazelle. And boom, you wake up one morning and you're like, Kyle Tucker, the biggest free agent out there this past offseason, signs a massive deal with the Los Angeles Dodgers that fills that corner outfield void. And you look up and down that lineup now, and it is dude after dude after dude after dude. Like, their lineup goes Shohei to Mookie to Tucker to Freddie Freeman, Will Smith. And Will Smith is, in my opinion, the best or 1A catcher in all of Major League Baseball, and he's usually hitting 5th for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Like, that's a guy that's hitting in the 2 or 3 hole on any other roster in the big league. So this team is going to be very, very good. But this is also a team that does have high variance, right? They are a team, especially in their starting rotation, that has questions of if they can stay healthy from now until we get to the postseason. And that was the question for them last year. And they were able to get healthy in October. And that starting pitching was the strength for them as they made their run to their second consecutive World Series title. But going into this year, Blake Snell is a guy that is not going to be in that rotation right away, going to start a little bit slower. And so can they stay healthy the duration of the year? We expect a full season out of Shohei Ohtani on the mound. Roki Sasaki, right? Like, because they are so talented, that's a guy that doesn't have to do as much as he would if he signed with any other team, where, his development would be a really big story on any other rotation in Major League Baseball. But on the Los Angeles Dodgers, he can kind of, be in the background and figure it out as he goes. But I'm really interested to see what his development path is in 2026 as we go here. But the Dodgers are storyline number one for me in 2026 that you should be following all year long. All right, let's get to storyline number two. And it is the continued globalization of Major League Baseball around the world. To the point I made a couple of minutes ago, baseball is in a great spot. Globally, baseball is gaining tons of popularity. I think you saw with the World Baseball Classic, if you saw the numbers on the ratings were through the roof, right? Like, you had over 10 million people that tuned into the World Baseball Classic. And that says a lot, because people could say, yeah, these games don't matter, or yeah, it's not the Olympics, but they tuned in. And you get different countries involved. That's how you continue to grow a sport. And when you get globalization in a sport, you also generate tons of revenue. I think one of the things for me when I think about the globalization of Major League Baseball, things that have helped that happen over the last couple of years. Number one, the best player in the sport is Japanese, right? He's a player that's not from the U.S. He's a player from Japan. And the Japanese market and what that's been able to do with the influx of eyes and people watching to see Shohei Ohtani play on a nightly basis is huge, right? They had their own separate Netflix deal showing the World Baseball Classic for Japan. I think that is big. Like, all the Japanese talent that we have in the big leagues right now, even on the Dodgers alone, right, with Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Roki Sasaki, players like Kazuma Akamoto from the Toronto Blue Jays, Mooney Murakami for the Chicago White Sox. Like, we have all this influx of talent, guys that we have seen in World Baseball Classics past that have come over, been posted, and now playing in the big leagues on an everyday basis. That has helped the growth and popularity of baseball overseas and in Japan, where it was already really big, but it has only continued with the rise of Shohei as the best player in the world. A couple of other things when you're talking about globalization of a sport and increases in revenue, you're talking about new players being involved in media rights, right? Like, if you're a sports fan, you hear the term media rights all the time. So where are games being shown? And you think of where the big checks come from. It comes from those national TV deals. So if you're thinking about Major League Baseball, you have ESPN that's still involved, right? They don't have as big of a chunk of the pie as they used to have, but they're still a major player. You have Turner Sports that's still involved, and TNT still showing games in the postseason. You have a new player or a returning player, big-time legacy media company, NBC, coming in to do Sunday Night Baseball. You've also gotten new media companies involved in the last several years and getting the streamers involved with places like Netflix that's going to be showing games for the first time this year. And also Apple seeing, Friday Night Baseball on Apple TV Plus, where you've probably seen the boy in years past and be seeing him in the future as well. So you're getting all of these different companies involved where showing the games is something that drives revenue, right? When you have places that are saying, okay, baseball's really popular, we want to be in the baseball business, that's something that's really good for the sport overall. I think the one thing to continue to watch as we go here is nationally, how you show the games, that's been figured out. And as we approach, 3 years from now, when all the media rights are up, like the NBA just had a couple of years ago, it'll be interesting to see how that pie is further divvied up. But getting this RSN situation figured out where fans can watch games in their cities and beyond, that's something that is we're going to have to watch here over the next year plus. As the league has kind of taken over a lot of the broadcasting duties for a lot of these teams over, the majority of the teams in Major League Baseball right now are, being controlled by the league themselves. And as we move forward here, that might be the future where the league controls the broadcasting of all the teams locally and beyond. But you have a lot of teams that have their own media deals. That obviously, going back to the Dodgers, that their deal is pretty sweet. And as some of these bigger teams are going to say, hey, does it behoove us to give up our media rights where we would be, pulling up the rest of the teams? That's something that we'll have to wait and see on. But that's something that I've been watching, and I think you should continue to watch, the globalization of baseball around the globe and how it's continued to expand in popularity. Don't let anybody fool you. We should be covering baseball more, not less, because the game is only growing. More people are going to the ballpark. More people are watching on TV. And that's because of you. You, person at home watching on YouTube, or if you're listening, you care about the game of baseball. That's why you're even listening or watching this podcast, because you care about baseball. And the more fans care about baseball, the more it means for you, for access to things, places you can watch, places you can read stories. It's great for the industry overall. But and from somebody that works in this business and needs fan support as a reporter, as somebody who's on air, like, I appreciate that people are watching baseball more and more, because the game is in a really great place. Like, for all the reasons I mentioned, but also like the star power in the game right now, the young star power in the game right now. We were in this weird window where, outside of Mike Trout, you didn't have as many young stars as we've seen. But in the last 3-4 years, you have so many talented players, guys like Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani, Bobby Witt Jr., Jose Ramirez. You have, Tarek Skubal and Paul Skeens on the pitching side that are as good as it gets. I could list 12 other guys, Ronald Acuna Jr., just Juan Soto, guy after guy after guy, that are generational type of talents that we have in the game right now, and many of whom are not from the States, which only further helps that continued globalization of Major League Baseball. So that is number 2. And number 3 also plays in with the first 2. We are now in the countdown to the expiration of the current collective bargaining agreement between Major League Baseball and the Major League Baseball Players Association. I know a lot of people for the last several years have been kind of waiting for 2026 and kind of preparing for what the end of this season would be on December 1st when that CBA expires. And look, our industry, there's a lot of people that are nervous about it for a lot of different reasons, because, if we get to a point when the CBA expires and you have both sides that are figuring, okay, there's going to have to be a work stoppage to figure this thing out. The thing about a work stoppage is nobody knows when that ends, right? Like, you've just seen it in the WNBA. Like, nobody knew how long that would last. In baseball, we kind of saw it a little bit a couple of years ago in 2022, had a work stoppage and, missed a couple of weeks of spring training, but the season ultimately started on time. This time around, I think both sides are a little bit more entrenched. I think both sides feel like they gave up a lot the last time around. Players feel that way. Obviously, owners in the league feels that way. And as great as we just talked about baseball being, right, in terms of the star power, the fact that people are watching games, the fact that people are going to games, and the fact that the product itself is in a great space, there are a lot of things that have to be figured out between December 1st, 2026 and the start of the 2027 season, whenever that is. And that leaves baseball in a weird place because we're going into a season that we should be, as an industry, you as a fan, really excited about. But there's this weird cloud hanging over everything of when is baseball going to happen when this season is done? And nobody really has the answer to that. And so, that's something that we're going to have to wait and see on. There's going to be plenty of reporting that happens over the next 6 to 7 months on what happens in Major League Baseball. You're going to probably hear a lot of things come out from both sides, even throughout the course of the season, of what owners are planning to talk about and what players are planning to push back against and what their talking points are. You're going to hear a lot of that as we approach December 1st, and then the negotiations that happen over the next 6 to 7 months. So that'll be something that you will constantly hear about and should. And I think it's really important, as some of these discussions and negotiations are going on, fans are informed on what the bargaining chips on the table for both sides are, what both sides are willing to move on, both sides are willing to say, we're not going to move on this. This is something that is really important to us, and to get a deal done, this is going to have to happen. So that is something that, look, frankly, it's scary because, yes, we've seen work stoppages in baseball before. There's a new CBA every 4 years, but it feels like both sides are really preparing for a fight here. And when that happens, you never know how long that work stoppage is going to be. And I think the side that people don't always think about is where the business goes. And I'm speaking as a person in media. When there's no baseball, that affects everything, right? That affects everybody from writers to people on TV, your local analysts and play-by-play people, the hot dog people, the people giving out popcorn, the people that give tours at the ballpark. All those people are affected when there is no baseball. And so outside of getting the game of baseball back, yes, that's really important. I really want that, getting the game of baseball back in 2027 and spring training starting on time and the season starting on time. There are other people whose lives are affected when there is no baseball. And so those are the things that I want you to think about as we go through the season.